is ready to go, and here it was. It came out yesterday, the AP preseason poll. It was actually Monday that it was released. The Big Ten and SEC each have 5 teams in the top 25. The SEC has 2 of the top 3. The Big Ten has 5 of the top 14, which leads to the debate that we frequently have. Paul Finebaum, who is the mouth of the South. His conference is better than your conference. But I went to school in the Big Ten. And I've been telling you this for the longest time, and I believe that the preseason vote sort of backed up my side of this argument. I believe that at least for this moment, the Big Ten has displaced the SEC as the best conference in college football.
You know, can I just ask the panel for some help here? Because I'm a newbie to this show. Michelle and Jalen, if I just wave the white flag and say Greeny's right, can we move on to something else? Because otherwise I feel like we're going to be having this schoolyard wrestling match between 2 kids that couldn't beat anyone else all year long.
No, Paul, I came here for you to fight each other, and that's
Paul.
what I want to hear happen.
Y'all duke it out, Paul.
The whole point
She
of
wants
this.
us to fight.
This is the schoolyard battle where everyone watching hopes both guys lose.
And he has stats for you, like the Big Ten was 7-1 in bowl games last year.
You know, he's really starting to make me feel inferior because I just have a University of Tennessee degree. I can't match up with Northwestern, so therefore I'm an idiot. And the fact that last time I completely brought all the facts to the table and Greeny had none other than his emotion, therefore we have this debate once again. Greeny, you're right. The stats prove out. The AP poll is the Supreme Court of college football, so I'm not even going to argue.
Fair enough. I like it. And by the way, speaking of Northwestern, they actually were not ranked, but they were in others receiving votes, and they do have the longest current win streak of any Power 5 going into this season. Let's move on to another topic then.
Thankfully.
Let's talk about Nick Saban, because he said yesterday no decision has been made at quarterback. And I heard what you said last week about how you talked to the boosters who got to see the practice, and that it seems a foregone conclusion in their minds that the job has already been decided. Do you think this is just Nick trying to keep this information from his Week 1 opponent, Louisville, or do you think this job really is still up for grabs?
If this was between Jalen Hurts and Tom Brady, Nick Saban would have said the exact same thing. He never reveals this. Even when it's apparent, he will drag it out. He's doing it for a couple of reasons. Greeny, you're right. He doesn't really want Louisville to know, even though they do know. What he doesn't want is to name 2 of the starter today, and then this afternoon he goes out and gets hurt, and he's stuck with Jalen Hurts having his feelings dismantled. So he is going to drag it out. And by the way, in the most recent scrimmage, for whatever this matters, Jalen had a really good scrimmage, according to people who were there, even though they're not supposed to tell anyone what happens at these secret scrimmages.
Let me ask you this, though, because I am curious to see this. Nick Saban has won 6 championships at Alabama by running the ball and playing defense. And if you're going to put a kid on the field whose primary attribute is that he can sling it, you're going to live with a little bit of risk along with that reward. How will he handle that the first time in a close game Tua puts his defense on a short field?
It's a great question. And when you talk about Alabama, everyone looks at the schedule. Alabama doesn't really look at a 12-game schedule. They look at the playoffs. They're in the playoffs every year. So that's what they're gearing for. They know they're going to beat most of these non-conference teams and SEC schools by double digits. Alabama had a game last year at Texas A&M. They won by 8 points, and it felt like they had lost by 80. So Saban's not overly concerned about day-to-day. He's trying to gear up for the big games, and I don't think you can say Alabama will have a close game maybe until late October, early November. So he's just trying to manage the team from that perspective, Greeny. And we don't know. I mean, although last year Tua was in a close game, he took a sack on 2nd and 26. We all know what happened. He threw a 42-yard walk-off touchdown to win the national championship.
Exactly right. So that's exactly my point, is the risk and the reward, and you got to live with part of it to get the other side of it. We have the Ohio State trustees meeting to discuss the future of football coach Urban Meyer. We expect to hear something perhaps as soon as within the next hour coming out of Columbus. What are you expecting to hear?
I'm expecting them to retain Urban Meyer. I think the argument now is it time served, whatever that means, meaning that he's been suspended for 3 weeks, or do they put on a dog and pony show and say, we're going to keep you off the field for 2 more weeks or 3 more weeks and issue a stern reprimand? I heard what you guys said earlier, and I think it's a big hill to climb to fire Urban Meyer for the facts that we think we know, and we'll obviously know more later on. He used terrible judgment. I think that's the understatement of the year. But should he be fired because he enabled someone who should have been jettisoned from his coaching staff for a long time? I suspect this Board of Trustees will determine that he's worth keeping. He's only one of the most successful coaches in college football history. I also believe that Urban, maybe I'm hopeful here, that he'll be remorseful, admit that he had a terrible error in judgment, and then we'll all move on to the football games.
Yeah, I'm really curious because they say they're going to be transparent here and that we'll get a written report in this. And I'm just curious to see the juxtaposition of, did he actually pass that information up the chain in 2015? And if so, why did he completely disavow any knowledge of it at the media day just a couple of weeks ago?